What's up, everyone? It's the Autistic Scyther here, and this is part 3 of Top 10 Favorite Cats in Video Games. If you're wondering where parts 1 and 2 are, they're on my channel now, so I suggest you watch those 2 videos first to see numbers 10 through 5, then come back for the remaining 4. And oh boy, we are basically getting to the meat and potatoes of this. So, yeah. Without further ado, let's get back into it. Moving on next at number 4, we have Leongar from Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Oh boy. Alright. I know lions and cats are different, as in lions are a different breed than your standard house cat. But when it comes down to it, considering how felines come in any shape or size, I had to mention at least one big cat sooner or later. And honestly, considering how much I love Kirby and the Forgotten Land, oh boy, I had to mention Leongar. And honestly, it really does say a lot since he's the leader of the Beast Pack, which is the main group of villains from Kirby and the Forgotten Land, to an extent from Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which also includes Gormondo, Silly-Dillo, and of course Clawroline, who of course is Leongar's wife, Carol. And yeah, you can understand why I'm choosing Leongar over Clawroline. But even with that, Leongar is an interesting character since before the events of Kirby and the Forgotten Land, he was a kind ruler and a benevolent leader who always looked out for the Beast Pack. And basically, things eventually changed when he came across Fecto Forgo, which warped his mind and allowed him to intelligently speak in an intelligent language. And naturally, this is one of the most surprising moments I've ever seen, since he's one of the more knowledgeable villains. And he is the hardest boss in a Kirby game. I mean, when you face off against him, he's basically coming at you with like full-on claw slashes, biting attack, lunging towards Kirby, and even firing a laser at him. And of course and he's coming from all sides, to the point that if you're not careful, he can easily overtake you. Take it from the guy who had to battle him several times. That's how hard it is. And even with that, after you defeat him, Fecto Forgo eventually ends up fusing him and the Beast Pack together and creating sort of a blob-like entity that threatens to swallow Kirby in an advancing wall of goop. And even after the game is over, you basically have to go on a mission to find... You end up going on a mission, thanks to Carol, to rescue every part of Leongar's soul. And afterwards, after finding each part, you end up seeing all the members of the Beast Pack bringing together Leon's soul to bring him back to his senses. It's just one of the most heartwarming things I've ever seen. It really does say a lot. And we need more villains like this in the Kirby franchise. Oh man. Moving on next at number 3, we have Cait Sith from Final Fantasy VII. Alright. When I started playing the Final Fantasy franchise with Final Fantasy X, I knew I was going to have to play through Final Fantasy VII at least at some point. And in all fairness, I went into playing Final Fantasy VII wanting to essentially experience every part of the game that everyone has played through. Everyone has experienced at least once. And I'm gonna play through it next month just for the cat riding the Moogle. Yeah, that's how crazy Cait Sith is. He is a cat wielding a megaphone and riding a Moogle. And the fact that he shows up in the gold saucer, when Cloud and his party end up arrive there for some R&R, I mean, he kind of makes for an interesting effort. But even with that, Cait Sith joins the party as your standard wild card, or your standard wild card gambler. Think Setzer from Final Fantasy VI. I mean, granted, in battle, the Moogle does all the fighting while he just basically fights alongside, controls it, where he basically controls it using the megaphone. But the gambling aspect is there thanks to his limit breaks being dice and a slot machine. Plus a third one that I can't really mention without getting demonetized on YouTube. But yeah. That being said, even with that, Cait Sith really has his Cait Sith has shown up in the Final Fantasy franchise as an enemy, he really makes his mark as a main character. And the fact that he was created by Reeve, by former Shinra President Reeve, is kind of a nice little connection that honestly links him with the entire party in some way, shape, or form. Especially when you consider Professor Hojo. Yeah, if you know, you know. But either way, it makes Cait Sith an interesting character. Especially with the fact that he has a Scottish accent. That's just icing on the cake. Moving on next at number 2, we have Morgana from Persona 5. Yeah. Well, I started getting into the Persona franchise with Persona 4, the animation. Honestly, I knew I was going to want to play through Persona 5. And in all fairness, this year, it's one of those games I really would like to play. Like, I mean it. And honestly, it's kind of a fun game, to say the least. And Morgana really makes the most of it, as he's basically a cat-like creature that you meet in basically the first castle, being Kamoshida's palace, and he more or less serves as your sort of exposition fairy / mascot of the entire group. I mean, since again, the Phantom, it was his idea to name the group, for Joker to name the group the Phantom Thieves. Kind of like how Teddy he served as it, kind of like Teddy in Persona 4 and I guess in Persona 3. And even with that, seeing his interactions with the other members of the group are amazing. I mean, from his kind of one-sided crush on Ann to his full-on rivalry with Ryuji. Again, bringing to mind the entire rivalry between Teddy and Yosuke. And honestly, it really does say a lot. Especially since when you get into the real world of Persona 5 outside of the palaces, he's just a normal cat. But in this game, he's kind of a full-on font of character. From turning into a full-on bus, or even going crazy over treasure. And this really says it once you consider his persona, as his main persona is Zorro, based on the famous figure of Spanish literature, only to transform into Mercurius, which is eventually become Mercurius, which is based on Hermes, the Greek god of mythology, or for this case, he's Mercury, the Roman god from Roman mythology, and both Hermes and both of which being the messenger god in both mythologies. And then in Persona 5 Royal, he goes forward yet again by turning his persona into Diego, Zorro's civilian in identity. Basically turning Morgana into a real Puss in Boots when you think about it. Yeah, I had to make that. Also in Persona 5 Royal, he turns into a human. And the basic crux of it is that he doesn't know whether he's a cat or not. So, there's that. But it's so awesome. Number one, we have Meowth from Pokemon. Yep, you kinda knew a Pokemon would take the number one spot. And as much as, considering there are a lot of Pokemon Pokemon out there, specifically cat Pokemon, and two families of which are starters. By the way, watch my Grass-type starter Pokemon, Fire-type starter Pokemon ranked from least favorite to favorite to see where I stand on both the Sprigatito and Litten lines. But in all fairness, it had to be the Meowth line. I mean, it's it's basically your standard cat. Especially when you consider Pikachu. How Pikachu is basically the standard Pokemon mascot. And it's thanks to the anime and Meowth from Team Rocket that gave a bit of a, not only allowed him as a bit of a sort of sanity, voice of sanity to Jesse and James's antics, but their entire efforts to steal Pikachu resonated throughout the anime. And as for the games, the Meowth line are really versatile. And this is really saying a lot once you consider in Generation 1, the Meowth line, Meowth and Persian were very good. As, well, psychic types and normal types were OP back in Gen 1. Being said, after they were eventually got nerfed in Gen 2 thanks to the Steel type. And the Dark type. But yeah, mainly Steel. But even with that, they've still stayed pretty versatile ever since then. And that was until Generation 7, which introduced the Alolan Meowth, which were basically became the way they were because they got used to being pampered so much. And yes, I still like Alolan Persian, even though it looked like it swallowed an entire watermelon. And then there was Galar with Galarian Meowth, which is basically a seafaring steel cat, which evolves into Berserker, which basically becomes a Wolverine cat. And then there's Gigantamax Meowth, which is just Long Cat in Pokemon form. And honestly, just all of them are just amazing. No matter what, I'll always find a way of using Meowth, and of course to a lesser extent Persian, whenever I play through Pokemon. That much I gotta say. Those are my top 10 favorite cats in video games. Like, comment, subscribe, and join my Patreon if you want to. You don't have to, but if you do, it's at patreon.com/theautisticcypher. And with that, see you next time, Shiny Hunters!